So what can you do if you're in a relationship where the masculine-feminine flow is backwards? What if it's your karma to be in this difficult relationship? These are good questions, so check it out. Hey, it's Sam, and I'm making this video to address a few questions that people had about the relationship astrology videos that I have been doing, and in particular, the big question that everybody has in the big statement and the big kind of protest is, something like, well, first of all, what do we do if you're a woman and the shortest distance is from you to your man, or you're a man and the shortest distance is from the woman to you? What do we do to fix it? Or usually and often we get the comment that says something like, because the mind tries to do something with it, like, well, isn't it their karma to then do that? If you're a woman who has strong masculine energy, or you're a man who has strong feminine energy, isn't that your karma to do this? Quote, your karma, which means your destiny and this unempowering thing. Of course, it's tricky. People are always saying, wait a minute, it's not just karma, we have power, right? And then that's, in one sense, but then as soon as we see something like this, it's like, but isn't that my karma? Isn't that my destiny? Isn't that what I'm supposed to do? This thing that's kind of backwards? And again, most people don't protest the principle. They understand the principle because it's very sensible. But when they see it in their life, they're like, but wait a minute, isn't that my karma to then do this? Here's the thing. So I'm sort of joking a little bit, because you may have seen, in the videos, I flat out emphatically say, your relationship probably has this. Most relationships, especially when we're younger, have a lot of this kind of energy in it, particularly because we are trying to overcome our fears, especially when we're younger. The reason we have this is often because there's a fear. Men have a crisis, even if they're a powerful masculine man. When we're younger and we're more sensitive and we don't know ourselves yet, we have a crisis of confidence when a man is younger. In fact, they might overassert it, like, oh, I'm great and powerful, and then you get shot down a few times, you get emasculated a few times, you mess up a few times, especially in this world now where men are kind of confused about what it is to even be a powerful man, if you're conscious at all. There's so many ideas, and I would say even sort of propaganda, that powerful masculine energy is somewhat abusive. It's, the patriarchy, oppressing, aggressive. So men are gun shy these days, so they're naturally like, I'm not sure how to express my masculine nature. Of course, women, they get the opposite sort of program. Well, don't just sit back and be a victim, go out and go for it. What's wrong with asking him out for a date? So again, when we don't know ourselves very well, especially when we're younger, men are a little shy, they're a little more shy. Women are less able to have the courage to be receptive. And so they look for a man who's safe, which is a man who is shy. So I discussed this in great detail in the first videos that I did on this. But the bottom line is this: when we have this kind of thing, it's because we're still immature and we're trying to understand ourselves through our gender. In relationships, this is where we're really bonding through ourselves, through our gender, because it's the most identifying trait that we all have. I'm a human being and I'm a male. And when I see another human being, the first thing I notice is male or female. First thing we distinguish is, dog, cat, rhinoceros, human, and indelibly connected to human is male, female. And then indelibly connected after that is attraction, aversion. It happens so fast we don't even see it, but it happens that way. Boom. I'm male, you're female. I'm male, you're male. I respond completely different to another male as I do to another female. Gender is cooked into everything. And when we get into relationship, our gender integrity and their gender integrity is brought into focus. Now I'm speaking heterosexual because that's the common, but even in gay couples where genders are more fluid, there's still a masculine feminine flow going back and forth, and that should be obvious. But the point is this: when we're younger, we're not so established yet in our own identity, so obviously we're not going to be as established in our own gender as a result. And again, particularly, and it's not just because of modern subtleties of gender, that's certainly part of it, but again, these are, in fact, given that, it's even more important, it's even more crucial to understand these principles. And this is why people protest now. Well, maybe that worked thousands of years ago, but now we have blah, blah, women's lib, da, da. None of that's true. Sorry, but it's not. I'm just going to go, forget it. It's not true. It's still gender. Power is still, this is still a universal principle of masculine and feminine. Now, again, we have to understand something. It doesn't mean that if you have this, that it's a, death sentence for a relationship or anything like that. There are many situations where, yes, a man does have more feminine energy and he bonds more to his feminine, and women bond more to the masculine. And when one can say, if one wants to say, well, isn't that my karma to do that? Yes. And it's the karma, as an astrologer, it's not to judge. Saying this stuff is not a judgment. It's like every other astrological truth. We need to understand the truth. It's not a judgment. And you want to understand something, though. When the woman has more masculine energy, and then she winds up in relationships where she's in the initiating role, then she's going to feel like that. She's going to feel like the mommy, the one taking care of it, and it's going to hurt her because all of that masculine power that helps her get ahead in her career, helps her with all this, sense of, what's the word? The word is capability. Makes her capable of handling things. It doesn't make her feel good in relationship. In fact, all of that energy that helps her in her work and whatnot doesn't give her any satisfaction in relationship. If she has to do that in the relationship, her feminine suffers. This is the point. It's not to judge, and it's not to say, well, it's bad, so fix it. It's to be aware. Astrology makes us aware of things. So the point is so that the woman who has all this masculine integrity, which is a beautiful thing, and it's all beautiful, it's not a judgment, but this woman is going to need to be educated about why she always feels like she's mommying her man. And to understand that there's a connection to capability for feminine energy and fear. Because it's the courage of feminine energy is the courage to be receptive, the courage to not have to manage and control, the courage to be capable, the courage to not have to manage and take care of things. Many times feminine energy, I don't want to say women, but that's that's where it's, most expressed. They often control, they often use capability and managing situations as a hedge against fear. Because they're afraid of having someone else manage, because then I have to be receptive and that's painful. Because there's the remembrance of when I wasn't in control and my heart was just broken and destroyed. So now I'm not going to have that happen, so I'll be the one in control. So this just needs to be explained. It's like anything else that needs to be explained. Men have the opposite. When men through gender are experiencing their fear of masculinity is not the fear of capability. It's not the fear of managing things. It is the fear, of managing things. It's not the fear of being receptive. It's the fear of being accountable and then screwing up and not being able to take care of things and manage things. This is masculine fear, that I'm going to get in there and then I'm not going to feel like it anymore, and I'm going to start something and have, and then not know how to handle it, not know how to manage it. especially not know how to manage and take care of, not take care of a woman, but take care of a relationship when the woman is never happy, or I've tried to do that before and I'm trying to manage this situation and nothing I do makes the woman happy, or I'm always messing up. Women don't understand how much their criticism hurts men. Really, when men and women get together, only thing the man wants to do is make the woman happy and do the things that she likes so that it's not being criticized, because we're trying to be capable, and getting criticized, again, it hurts a man just as much. Actually, women take criticism much better because they're much more adaptable. They change through criticism. There's a wonderful author named Alison Armstrong that you should read and understand. She has a lot of books called Understanding Men, Understand Men. They're actually written for women to understand the way men's brains work. And men are really wired to please women, and because we don't really know how to do it, especially when we're younger. So this is why men, as they get older, they need to establish themselves and be confident in themselves and their path, and then understand where their actions become capable, and they have confidence in their capability to handle situations and not have their emotions override their vision and purpose. So they can handle the emotional disappointment that comes from women and stay on course in their life. So again, this is the reason the woman is in control and has this kind of thing is because of her fear of being receptive. The reason the man is in this kind of relationship is his fear of initiating, his fear of being capable. And again, it's not a judgment. And yes, you see people who isn't it their karma to do that? Yeah, it's their karma. And it's going to show what it shows. They're not separate. And to say it's their karma doesn't mean they're sentenced to, be in that situation. The energy still shows what it shows. Like every other kind of karma. This is just a subtle karma. And again, because it's quite common, when I talk about this, people come out of the woodwork because you'll often see very capable women have a lot of masculine energy. So a lot of women who are interested in astrology, they have a lot of this. And a lot of men who are interested in astrology are very sensitive. Right? So think about this and notice it. And also notice it's one thing in the stew. It's not everything. And it's part of a larger system. And again, like I said in the last video, the principle is important, the masculine-feminine principle. We all can sense that this is correct. Since we live in a world of political correctness gone amok, and the political correctness is disconnected from the universal truth, we need to come back to universal truths once in a while and say, wait a second. And, by the way, the truth is we're all a mixture of these two things. A woman is 51% female and 49% male, and vice versa. But it's in relationships where that gender identity through ourself, how we experience ourselves as a masculine or feminine pole is brought into focus. This is why when we make relationships work, it feels like our whole reality and identity works. Because it's this identity that's aligned and totally connected to gender. As deep as it is when we see another human, first thing is male, female, attraction, aversion, some other kind of thing. It's almost instantaneous. It's not instantaneous because they are thought processes, but they're deep. They're very deeply hardwired, embedded in the reptile brain. And so this is why when we're able to make it work for those moments, think about what happens when relationships are working at the beginning. What's happening? Well, everything the man does makes the woman happy. He says things, she laughs. She listens, she's open and she trusts. He feels that beauty, reflected back to him. And then it starts to change. He says something not so good. Oh, now he starts to change a little bit. She starts receiving something that doesn't feel so good anymore. Oh, now what? Oops, now she reflects it back. He senses it. He gets hesitant. His crisis of masculinity steps in. Now he's not sure what to do. She's not sure she trusts anymore. And here we have it. When it works, even though she might receive something that doesn't feel good and she says something, he's confident enough in himself where he's like, it's okay. All she wants to see when she reflects something back is that it doesn't totally crash his world. If she reflects something back that totally frazzles him and then he doesn't know where he's going anymore, she trusts even less. And then he senses she trusts even less, so he doesn't know where he's going even more. So it's this masculine-feminine dance, right? As people mature, the woman gets less afraid of being receptive. The man gets less afraid of trying to please her. And his life revolves more around where he's going and his purpose, and she's, not the obsessive center point of his life, and vice versa. He's not the obsessive center point of her life, and these things start to mellow out. And then what happens when the flow is good? Then these things start to circulate. But we need to be established in our gender identity first. Then the man established in his masculine nature can relax into his feminine, because his feminine then is not a fear-based response to a non-integrated masculine. And the woman then can step into her masculine nature, not as a fear, like a fear of being controlled, but because she already trusts. And now she can take care of things and assert her masculine, and man can assert his feminine. Many times people will say, they'll look at the charts and they'll say, well, that's not the way it is at all. I have this, but blah, 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 blah. Right, and there are other things to consider. This is one thing to consider, but it's going to show a potential, especially if there are a lot of other factors that show this, then it can really go off the rails. But other things that support the man's masculine and the woman's feminine can show how over time this can get less complex and less difficult, because again, there's the principle and then there's the technique, but it's also one part of a larger comprehensive system. And again, if you want to learn that, I've taught this quite a bit. It's not that hard to learn, but it's complex. It's not just this. This is one part of the Vedic Kuta system, which is one part of one part, that evaluate the nakshatras and the distances based on 8 factors. 8. But then there's also synastry, one person's planets on the other, and then there's also the individual's chart, which is even perhaps the most important thing, because that shows the tendency to do this, like I said at the beginning. A woman who has a Aries ascendant and most of the planets in masculine signs, she's going to have a tendency to initiate and be in that role anyway. So again, in this case, you can already tell her, you don't have to look at her relationships. She's going to have more difficulty perhaps bonding with her feminine planets. You have to look at that. The moon and Venus, she'll have a harder time being in the receptive role. So she might have a great work life and a great career. But again, that doesn't give anything in a relationship. They're totally different things. What feels great in the career gives you no benefit in relationship for a woman, because the woman is trying to know her feminine nature in relationship, which is the capacity to be receptive. The man, he might have a very sensitive side. You'll often see it with a man, and this is why it works this way. The man might be very bonded to his heart and be very nurturing, maybe stay-home family man, something like that. And all those skills give him nothing in his career. Right? So this is how you'll see. Isn't that their karma to do that? It's their karma, but how much does that kind of thing feel good to each person? It doesn't feel good. It feels out of sync when the woman is, let's say, the breadwinner and the man's staying home. And she feels like she's having to take care of everything. Again, that might not be the only way to judge it. And it's not the only way. That's just an external thing. I've seen many situations where that happens, but the masculine-feminine flow is good, and it's fine. And the couple is fine with it. She doesn't feel like she's having to take care of him, and he doesn't feel like he's being emasculated. So again, these are principles. They absolutely make sense to anyone who has been in relationships and has felt this energetic flow, but don't get confused and get kind of, sort of discombobulated by well, isn't it their karma to do that? Sure, and it's their karma to feel the difficulty of it. That's what it is. And it's not our karma as in the sense of, this karma is unempowering, we have no choice, and this is our sentence. No more than any karma is that, right? So don't go defending your right to be in a dysfunctional relationship And then in other situations, like if I were to say, well, that's just your sentence and you're going to suffer and it'll be terrible and there's nothing you can do about it, you know, act like that's, you know, the way that you want it to be. It's never that way. We're just, as astrology students and astrologers, our job is not to judge it. It's not a judgment. It's a recognition of the principle, showing the technique that illustrates the principle, showing that it's part of one thing. It's not everything, but it does show what it shows. And what's more important is being able to understand it so you can explain it to the person, not to judge it. Not to judge, it's bad, you're this, you're that. No, it's saying, hey, this is great. All this masculine energy is great. You know, it shows that you're, you know, very capable, you take care of things, but unfortunately, you also feel like you're having to take care of your partner. This is why in partners you always feel like you're mommying them and you never feel like men are this way and that way. You do it before you even give them a chance to do it because you're afraid of being receptive. So look into your fear of being receptive, you would say to the woman. To the man, why it always feels like when you get in a relationship, you totally lose yourself and you're nervous, you have this crisis of confidence, this crisis of leadership. You can see that show up in other areas of your life, ... And this will be accurate. And it'll be accurate because it's a principle. And principles are facts, actually. You can look at these as astrological facts. It's not a technique or an opinion. When you see something like this, you know that that's going to be the case in the relationship, and you'll usually see it in the person's chart, their individual chart as well, and you can speak on that level because it's a principle that is factual. It's not something where it's like, well, I'm not sure if you're going to do this, which is another level of, quote, prediction. The more you can stay with facts that are connected to principles, the better. So we'll leave that for another video, but I hope this was helpful.